Okay, welcome back everybody. Today I'm actually just wanted to go through some transplanting practices. So as I mentioned before, I like these deep containers for certain plants. Actually, I grow everything in these 6-packs, and things like basil and herbs, some of the flowers, I can directly plant these right out into the garden, which is great, and so that's why I like these deeper cells. Depending on the species, I will plant multiple seeds to make sure that I get the fill that I need, and then also based on the germination. For herbs, I do multiple seeds, and then like I say, I'll plant these directly out into the garden, and it's a great one-step process. But when I want bigger plants for transplanting, or something needs a longer growing season like these eggplant, I'll have to transplant this into a larger container, and I wanted to go through that process with you. So just whatever size you're going to use, you'll get kind of adapted to what is good for the garden that you're using, and the amount of time that you need the plant to grow in the garden. So this is probably equivalent to about a 4-inch pot. This is a round one, or maybe equivalent to a 3-inch pot. These can come in square or round. You can also measure these by volume. So this is probably a 16-ounce by volume or 12-ounce by volume. So the first thing I do when I transplant these, I like to get a little bit of soil in there so that I'm at the proper planting height when I put that in. And so that's just about an inch of soil, and then what I'll do is kind of hold that between my two fingers and start to get some soil then put in around that plant until it's completely filled. And then I'll do a little tapping on that, and essentially I'll get that potted up real nicely. So these are Nadia Eggplant. It's a black skinned eggplant, and they do require a longer growing season, so I do like to do pot these up into a larger size. So I'll give these about 4 more weeks in this container before they go outside. So one of the things about extracting these out, though, is I like to sort of finesse the roots out of the container, because they will adhere a little bit, so I can get a fully extracted root is the way I prefer to do that. And again, I put a little bit of soil here in the base to kind of make a bit of a stand for that. Can't generally stand up just completely on its own until I get a little bit of soil around that root system, that plug that I just put in there. Essentially fill that to the top, and then I'll just lightly tap this. I don't want these heavily compacted. I want them just lightly filled. And you see some of these, I have 2, so again, I'll probably decide to cut one of these, but some cases I'll plant 2 seeds per cell in these trays, even with vegetables, because I don't want to get any skips. You can see this one never really produced a plant, so I'll get 5 out of these. I could try to go through the practice of actually separating these out and transplanting that way. Let me move this out of the way real quick. And this is generally a practice that I don't do, but just to show you that it can be done. And also, I would probably do this at an earlier point. This is a pretty large seedling to be transplanting, but nonetheless it could be done. And I'll get that in there with some loose fill around that, and then probably have to put a little bit of packing around there just to help get it to stay upright pretty quickly. And then I don't want to stress these too much with light, so I'll give them some water these ones in that are transplanted like this, and then maybe keep them to acclimate a little bit before I put them back under the grow lights. And these will sit under grow lights for another 4 weeks. I'll slowly try to move them outside as the weather starts to break. It's 30 degrees out. It's April 10th today. It's about 35 degrees, 36 degrees out, so still pretty cold. Everything is down in the grow room still at this point. And so that's the basic process. If you did want to transplant and separate those out, usually what I try to get though is just, and if I'm good, I can plant one seed per cell and get the subsequent one plant germinated from that single seed. So in this case I would put 6 seeds, get them germinated. That takes about 4 weeks. This Nadia eggplant was sown on March 6th and it's now March 9th, so that's about April 9th, and that's about 4 weeks of growth. And I'll need another 4 weeks in this container before I would like to get them out into the garden. And so that's the basic process. You know, maybe later in the summer I could transplant something like this directly in the garden and it may develop and establish a fruit, but you have to calculate back the number of days from your last frost date to the number of days it takes the fruit to mature to really calculate, you know, when the transplanting can be done. And so for things like eggplant, tomatoes, generally those are started planted outdoors anywhere between May 15th and June 1st, and then the harvest will come later in the summer depending on the number of days to harvest from flowering to fruit set. So that's pretty much the example of transplanting these Nadia into a larger container, and then I'll go ahead and water these in and grow them for another 4 weeks and get them ready to be transplanted outdoors into the garden. Okay, thanks for watching, and